Well, thanks everybody for coming in today. Today's theme is the pains of moving forward. When I was looking at all of the ways that we hear it all the time, moving forward in the sense that it just seems easy, right? If you're in a rut, just do the steps you need to do to move forward. And what Spirit is saying, they've been hearing this a lot from coaches, and you hear it all on social media and other people. And as a general rule, a lot of people don't know what that means, the moving forward part, because they're comparing everything from the past and they're still struggling. And so we want to go over some of the reasons why, if you're trying to do something, in other words, if you're trying to get through a relationship, something's just started, and for whatever reason, there's one delay after another, and there's a little bit of conflict and turmoil there, but it always seems to restart, and you're trying to sort of move forward, if I can use those words, and there's always sort of an obstacle. Same with the job. You're not happy in your job, and you want to figure, okay, well, I don't know if I can take this job. The working conditions are not the best. Maybe I should move or go to another job. And then there's delays on that one. And so there's 5 different ways energetically of why something is happening regarding this moving forward energy. We want to sort of quantify it so that you have an idea that many times it isn't you. There's an energy around us that's trying to help, and other energies are not. And so we want to be able to segregate that so we can sort of see what is really going on. And you can ask the questions that we're going to be talking about, or whether or not this applies to you, whichever step. Okay. The first one is if you're trying something and again, and it just something doesn't want to chug forward. This could be a business, a relationship, as I said, and it could be anything, even spiritual journey. When we start a spiritual journey, it says, oh, yes, get some crystals, start doing yoga, start, doing all the things you need to do to lighten yourself, come in for tuning sessions or crystal bowl sessions or whatever it is. There's over 200 different things you can do to lighten your energy. And then you're going to experience moving forward on that. You're going to have all kinds of hiccups and all kinds of delays and things are happening. So we want to be able to think and figure out and go through a list of whether or not something's going to happen for you. The first one is it happens quite a bit. If you're trying to do something and it's not working, maybe what you're trying to do is not needed. So you ask yourself, in a meditation or in a place where you're on your own by yourself, and you're asking the questions, okay, if I'm going through all of these delays, all of these setbacks, is it needs to be done in the first place? Recently, I had a client that said, I've been trying this business now for 3 years and it's just not working. Looking at this particular work and everything I'm doing from a conceptual part or technical part is right on. I mean, all the social medias I've been doing speaking on this particular business, and it just doesn't seem to want to go. So then you ask yourself, is the business really necessary? In other words, is it even necessary to keep going? So what we want to do, we don't want to just put everything in one pot saying you're not moving forward. Maybe it's you. So we got to inspire you, or we got to push you, or we got to, okay? So there's always that suggestion that it's us. And Spirit wants to sort of separate that because it sometimes it isn't. Is it even needed? If you have a situation with a child, is a good example, and there's some discord with the neighbor's children. Maybe they had a little conflict, or maybe they had not a fight, but they had a real disagreement. They were yelling and maybe pushing each other around. Sometimes when kids are doing that, if you just watch them, they will find a way to work it out. And then they're within 2 minutes, they're playing again. You didn't have to do anything. Now, I'm not saying that you don't need to sometimes intervene or teach them how to get along, that kind of thing. But sometimes if you just take a moment and saying, does my input need to be necessary? And so Spirit wants you to ask yourself that question. Is it even necessary? Should I even do anything? And most times it will clear up on its own. Number two, is there an element of fear in whatever that you're doing to move forward? Give you a great example. I recently had this with a client. We were going through the various aspect of him getting a new job. He's high up in the senior management and is very talented, been in business for many years, but needs to make more money to make few of his goals done. And we've established that. Okay. And he was underpaid where he was, so it's logical that he'd be sort of looking around. And everything that he was doing, he was trying to get his resume done, and there was always something that interrupted him. Trying to go for interviews that always got rescheduled. He was always late for some of them. And there's one thing after another keeping him from getting an appointment, getting an interview, getting the resume, all these things together to apply for other jobs. And so when he was telling me all the things, and one of them was, and this is where, if somebody who can start reading energy and start reading the various activities that are going on in your life, he was mentioning that there was a couple of times where he was tripping up the stairs. Have you ever had that happen where you're trying to go up the stairs and you misstep and you're tripping up the stairs? That's an energetic clue to a person that's sensitive, saying that there's a glitch or a hiccup in moving forward up the ladder. And as soon as he said that, I says, has that happened more than once? He says, actually, this week it's happened twice. I says, okay. I mean, how many times has that happened? I think the last time that happened to me was years ago once. But twice in 1 week, there is definitely something there. The tripping and this kind of thing always means something regarding a move forward or stepping back. And I says, were you hitting your right foot or your left? He says, my right. And your right signifies that it is a moving forward. In other words, when you're walking into a room, if your left foot hits the room first, it means in this meeting, you're going to be stepping back and taking a perspective. So it's not going to be any assertion. It's just more or less a data control or a data entry type of meeting. You're not going to be too involved. If it is something more assertive, you're going to be placing your right foot in that room. That's how it normally goes. So when you're going into an important meeting that you have to defend yourself or something, make sure your right foot goes into the room first, and it gives you that energetic boost. But just to move on, as we were sort of talking, and I started seeing signs, one thing after another, regarding a hiccup in his energy regarding moving forward to go up. In other words, getting a better job or getting something else. And I says, okay, let's talk about this. So let's just back up for a second. If you get this higher paying job and you get there and you start making more money, what would that do to your life? And he hesitated for a second. He says, that would be okay. I says, oh no, that was a hesitation. So what's going on? What was the hesitation you had there? He says, well, I'll be honest with you, Tony. I'm just going through a divorce right now, and they're still going through all the paperwork. And I am also sort of cognitive that if I get this higher paying job, the alimony or child support will be based on the new income I'll be bringing in. So do you see the fear there? So in other words, he wants this higher paying job, but it's going to be anti-productive based on his present situation, because he thinks, and I'm not saying that he will be paying more, and that's not the important part of this. The important part is he has the perception he's going to be paying more if he starts moving forward. Does that make sense? There's a perception that if I do better, I have to pay more. So when we said, okay, well, whether that is true or not, that's something you talk about with your lawyer, but your energy is fearful, and that's why you can't do your resume. There's always delays because you're manifesting this so you don't get this job. All right, so that's one thing. So ask yourself, is there a fear of me moving forward? And sometimes we see this a little bit in people that are on let's say a disability, all right, and they're doing better. They have disability checks coming in, and then they want to do better. But then the fear is, if I get a job and do better, what the board will do, whoever the board is that sends him the check, when they start seeing that he's making money, he'll be cut off. So there's a fear that he's going to be making actually less if he works harder. That kind of thing. So is there a fear is the question, okay? The third thing is anger. Is there any anger in moving forward? And this is a big one. How many times have you seen some of the ads that says a get rich quick scheme? That if you put in $250 or $1,000 somewhere, whether it's in cryptocurrency, that's the biggest one now, and various other schemes, that it will double, triple within a week. And you can do it on your spare time, and however the thing goes. So let's say, for instance, a person does one of those things, and it is disappointing, because those, what the ratios are showing is that the vast majority are not doing those numbers for whatever reason. I'm not here to criticize them, but in the end, it's not producing what they expected. And so there's a hit. And if you do that again and again and again, eventually your energy will realize that any kind of shortcuts, any kind of extra thing that you want to do will end up in disappointment. So you see, there's a little bit of animosity there. So when another ad comes up, oh, we could make you money, $30,000 a week then all of a sudden your energy changes to anger. There's this something that can make you something to move forward. But you see the anger? You see, you feel that there'd be anger in that. He says, oh, then you just turn the page. And what happens is, eventually, any opportunity, and this is why it sort of spreads, any opportunity for you to move forward. Oh, if you buy this house, it's really low on the market right now. And if you buy it, like, you could fix it up, sell it, flip the house, and you could make $200,000. I've been through this. You see what I mean? It's not only what is shown to you, but then any opportunity to make something, or if spirit wants to start sending you opportunities, there's going to be that rejection element, because it's almost like you're programmed that is going to be another disappointment. And so there's anger. And so any anger will not be fruitful. And I wouldn't suggest that if you're angered or frustrated or any of those sort of lower energies, that you get involved in any business activity. It's always going to be an element of calm and anticipation for something great. Those will tend to be better than the ones that you go into it with anger. Anger never works. Irritation never works. Don't do it just despite of somebody, because it will backfire, because the energy is playing with you that way. So that's number 3. Number 4 is when we totally give up. In other words, no matter what comes up, you're not happy where you are. It's familiar, as the coin reads. It's familiar to you, so you sort of adapt to it. You adapt to a modest apartment. You adapt to a modest income. You adapt to a modest lifestyle. You're still complaining about it, but you adapt. Okay, you've sort of given up. And so you ask yourself, have I given up? And if it's no, then move up a little bit. Is there any anger in whatever it is that I'm thinking about? And then if there's no anger, then move yourself up. And then maybe somewhere in there it will give you some idea of where you might stand. And if it is fear, usually it's something specific. You have a specific, you just won't be afraid of success. Because even if you say that, because we hear that as well, we're afraid of success. Well, it's not the success you're afraid of. You're afraid of what the success will cost you in time. Sometimes we hear someone is ultra successful in something and then never see their kids. And they end up going through and they lose their spouse and they're basically alone, but they have millions of dollars. We hear this all the time. And so I'm not saying that success will create that. Well, what I'm saying is the perception, again, is that I don't want to be like that. You could say that I had a neighbor a number of years ago who was really successful, but ended up losing everything because he was always working. It's all because that's what success costs. And we're not suggesting that it does do that. There's always a balance. And private time and time with your family is a time we cut out for ourselves, and we know that that is going to be expensive in the sense that we're not working, and that's okay because we'll make it up when we get back to work. But a lot of people have this idea that they got to be constantly working on something to make money or to get further ahead. And if that is your belief, then it's really hard for spirit to start getting you out of that, because they want a balance in your life. And we're going to talk about the last one, which is the most important, and that's authenticity. I just heard one of Tanya Hewitt's webinar talking about authenticity, and I'm really glad I came to that class because it gave me a different perspective of how, and I was looking at various people that attended this, and it was great, but it showed me about authenticity and sort of brought this in the mix as well. To be authentic means that you are looking at who you are. And when we ask ourselves, who are we? We have to realize that we are the only species on this planet that is asking that question. We don't, as a population, as a race, we don't know who we are. I mean, yes, there are pockets of people and cultures that know who they are. But as a population, as a whole race, when they say we are all one, when you talk about that, we don't know who we are, because the vast majority of people are not authentic because they don't know who they are. And so let's look at this for a second. When is this taught in class? When was the last time in elementary school or high school or college where they taught you how to be authentic? One of the subjects that came up was when people tell you just to be yourself. Well, that is only good when you know who you are, to be yourself. Again, most people don't know who they are. So to tell somebody to just be yourself, it sounds like it's a inspirational quote, but it doesn't really mean much, because it lacks sort of some content. It lacks some oomph. This culture that we're in doesn't want you to be authentic. They want you to fit in. They want you to find a way how you can fit into other, because it's easier to control a large population when everyone moves together. I'll tell you one population that is really difficult to manage. Kindergarten kids. Have you ever tried to get 50 kids in kindergarten, 4 years old, or in that area? I've seen this. That's why they need 20 teachers or 10 teachers. If you have 50, they got to have, I think the ratio is 2 or 5 to 1. Because they just came out of spirit and they have their own mind, and they don't listen. They just, whatever is on their energy is what they're doing. Some are jumping up and down, some are reading in one corner, some are playing with their friends, and they're just doing their own thing. But to get everyone doing the same thing is next to impossible. The Spirit says they have not yet been domesticated. They're still in that flow where they are doing their own thing. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to have one teacher to say, everybody move to the right, and all the kids do it. Everybody, right? That's what this culture wants us to do. It tells us what to do. And it actually plays down being authentic. They want you not to know who you are. Because the moment you don't know who you are, then you start looking at products, because we are basically a commercial market. Our economic conditions are more important than what the people are feeling and what the land will take and the sustainability of this planet. Walruses, insects, birds, whales, anything in the sea, anything in the air, they all know part of this ecosystem. Plants, rocks, everything has an ecosystem. That's why it's been around for millions of years, because it's sustainable. We as humans, when we breathe out, that is the same thing as the tree. It also breathes, but it breathes the opposite. It breathes out oxygen. We breathe in the oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide, and they breathe in carbon dioxide. So you see the sustainability And the same with animals. It's been like that for millions of years. Yet this race doesn't know where we're going in the next 100 years because we consume more than we are producing. We are taking the resources faster than it is able to sustain. So, in other words, this is about sustainability. So, whatever that you're doing, ask yourself, can I do this for another 20 years? If you're in a relationship where, it's not that positive, like it was good in the beginning, but it's sort of slowed down, it's not that great, can you do it for another 20 years? People say, no, I can't. And all Spirit is saying, oh, yes, you can. The point is, do you want to? Because we're all strong. I mean, we've seen more than one time where domestic violence happens for 10, 15, 20 years. The person that's being abused should have left decades ago, but didn't because of whatever reason. It could have been the kids, could have been fear, whatever it is. But don't underestimate your strength. You can do it. However, the question is, do you want to? When we start asking those kind of questions is what is sustainable and are you willing to do it? Then you'll have an answer. When you have a bad day with your kids, don't listen. And so sometimes for some parents, they just can't believe some of the things that they have to go through. And it's exhausting after a hard day's work. You come home and, they have to go to the hospital for whatever reason. I just experienced this recently. And there's always extra energy in you to be able to take care of your family, take care of your kids. And so you ask the question, can I take care of my family for another 20 years? Absolutely. So in other words, there are still difficulties, but when you ask that question, can I do it for another 20, 30, 40 years? And if you say yes, then you're on that path of sustainability, you see? But if you're in a relationship where there's not really much there, can you do it for another 20 years? Well, okay, I've been told I can, but I don't want to. Then that tells you something. That tells you that is not sustainable. Our culture doesn't want you to find your wholeness. In fact, it's actually played down. Most of the things you'll find is how to find more questions to the questions or answers to the questions that you're asking. We become confused. We become ungrounded. We become sort of lofty and in many cases, and we're just not sure what direction to go. But our ancestors didn't have that problem. It was a much more simpler life. They had time to themselves. They had time where they could reflect, would go fishing, meditate. They go, when was the last time you went on a rock somewhere close to a lake and just read a book? Our society has been structured in a way that keeps us busy, Spirit is saying. Busy all the time, busy, busy. Every moment of the day, you should be doing something for yourself, for your family, trying to do that. And we have been listening to the wrong voices, because those same voices are the ones that's producing our foods, producing all of our economic conditions regarding products that we buy. And so there is sort of a conflict of interest in the sense that they're not really interested in your well-being. They're interested in what you can provide. And so you have to, because our culture doesn't actually push you to find who you are, we have to do it on our own, Spirit is saying. It's much more applicable than it has ever been, where we have to just say to ourselves, okay, today is a me day. Or if you can't take the whole day, I'm going to work the morning, and from noon on, I'm just going to, it's going to be a me afternoon. We have to do those things on purpose for all the other things that come into our energy by accident. Our fear of lack of something, whether it's lack of control, lack of funds, lack of resources, lack of training, or there's something in us that is not right. But right away, we start doubting ourselves. And that is a big pain in order for you to move forward. Because when you're not sure that you should be moving at all, it's just like having your feet stuck in cement. The simplest thing you can't do. And so all Spirit wants you to realize is it isn't you. It's the fact that you don't know what's going on with your energy. And so there's just this, okay, let's stop. Because last week we talked about standing back and just taking a step back based on the nation. We were talking more about the Remembrance Day. But in addition to that, the week before, we were talking about stepping back and just watching the perspective and getting an idea of where you are in your life. Because there will be milestones in your life that you'll have. And, sometimes they're celebrated and other times you just move on to something else. And Spirit says to move forward, you need to know that what you've done so far, that you're happy with. Good, bad, or ugly, it is what you are. And the worst thing about the whole thing is that you survived. You might not have agreed to what happened, but no matter what happened, you went through it and you're still here. And so that suggests that you have strength. And so when you ask yourself, am I authentic? Who is this person? Who is this person in me? Your name are just 2 words or 3 words that your parents gave you. It's not who you are. That's who we can identify with, so we can put it on a driver's license. But who really are you? And when you start asking those questions, before I move forward, I want to know that every step I'm moving, I'm going in the right direction that feels good for me. So you are whole and you're not moving forward based on the expectations of others. That's a big one. What will my neighbors say? What will my parents say? What will my spouse say? What will my family say if I do such a thing? There are sometimes we make decisions and we know our families won't agree. They won't accept what we did. So we have this, okay, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to keep it quiet. And that's where some of the fear is, because we know that's not really right. But there's something not so much wrong with that, but we feel funny not being able to be honest with what we do. People should realize that we have to demonstrate that it is okay that if we do things ourselves, because it's us. They raised us. Society raised us to this point. But whether you're happy, frustrated, or wherever you are right now, when you take stock of where you are and you ask these questions, and being authentic, being able to say, this is who I am. And it's funny, when sometimes I get a person across from me, we're doing a reading, and a person is, let's say, a financial planner. And as they're talking about their profession and everything, and I would sort of smile, and they said, well, Tony, why are you smiling? I says, oh, no, I'm not doing it out of disrespect. I'm only doing it because in all the lifetimes you have been on this earth, you had something to do with managing money. Going back to the pharaoh, you were managing the emperor's money. All the gold were coming in, and it was always that creating and moving resources around. And it's so incredible for me to see and feel that you're still sort of doing that. And then the next question, I said, well, my next question was, should I keep doing it? And I says, why would you doubt what you're doing now? In other words, when we look at the tendencies of what we are doing, it's amazing how you were doing the same thing many, many lifetimes. And there's always been that push to help people, because on the greater scheme of things, we're not taught how to move those things, but we're not taught a lot of other things as well. And so the reason that you're doing this profession is really to help people, because you have been doing it. It's a knack. A knack is something that's in your energy pretty much at birth. If a person is a songwriter or a singer, you know pretty much that they were doing the same in previous lives. Entertaining, people, making joy. That's what they want to do. And then when others look at your human perspective and saying, oh no, you shouldn't be a singer, you should be a lawyer because they make good money, or you should be a doctor because you get to help people. And in the effort of that child trying to fit in, do you see the discord? It's a huge discord. Now, most times it isn't that dramatic from, let's say, songwriter to doctor, but it could be something that they just want you in a 9 to 5 job, but you want to do music. And so that doesn't have a schedule. You just perform when you are booked, sort of thing. But doing what you love, doing what you do because it is who you are, that's what the start of being authentic, just owning it. And so whether you're a speech writer or you're a presenter, whether you're working with money, whether you're working with people, a yoga instructor, if it gives you a lot of joy doing it, then that is the real pain, because you got to get past that to really accept who you are. And then the voices will start coming, and that's what makes great professions. Whenever you add, I've always said this, whenever you add intuition and anything spirit can give you on top of your profession, it will always, always give you an edge and make you that much more sought after, because you have something that you can't get from a book, or you can't get from just training. It's something coming out of you that is special. There are realtors in our city, in Ottawa, and most of you have, realtors in your own cities. And there are realtors that are doing extremely well. They're selling an average of 5 homes sometimes a week, and some are selling 5 homes a year. They are. And both times they're complaining about the workload. And in both cases, I've had them both. They all work very, very hard. But why is it that the performance is different? Because the one that looks at just doing an amazing job and caring for their clients seem to be doing better than the ones that just look at, oh, I only sold 1 home in the last month, or 1 home in the last 3 months. They're looking at the report card and not looking at the chalkboard of what needs to be done, what they feel they need to do. So ask yourself, what is sustainable in your life? And that's where your authenticity will start coming out. Okay? The meditation that we're going to do today, during that, and you've seen this before, I've chosen, or Spirit has chosen, the imagination frequency, because this will, the vibrations and the frequencies that are embedded in this video will help you spur the visions of where you want to be. When you can honestly say, I really do want a larger home, or I really do want this job, and the only thing that's in the way is you, in the sense that you're authentic. I just want this because I know I can achieve it and manifest it. Then the visions of that will start coming, and you can put your visions ahead of yourself, and that's when the moving forward will be easier. Taking a step forward will then be that, because if I were to push you from the back, right? If I pushed your back, you would have to take a step forward so you don't fall forward. And so it's a little bit like that, is having something else nudge you or push you, rather than dragging it and making those steps, making those uncertain steps in this way, because you're doing it humanly. Let's take a step forward of where your path is going, and it's drawing you towards it. That is sustainable. I could do that for 50 years, but I can't start trudging and drudging for 50 years. You get exhausted doing that. So ask yourself, what is sustainable? And look at those few questions that we went through, and see which one is holding you back, that you have been unable to move forward on something, a project, a relationship, a job, whatever it is that is seems to be holding you back, and you'll identify it very quickly now that we've separated the fact that it's not just you. It could be something else. It could be something that's in you that we need to address. Okay, so I want you to get yourself comfortable. If you today's color is purple or orange. If you have a crystal or something in that color, or a fruit or whatever it is, an outfit, piece of material, even if you just had a t-shirt in your hand, just to hold that color, it's an energy, it gives a vibration. I want you to take a nice deep breath. Breathe in the color orange, like tangerine orange, and then I want you to exhale purple. Okay, you breathe in orange, nice deep breath, hold it for a second or so, and then breathe out purple. Let's talk about, and then ask yourself that question that we talked about. We'll see you in about 20 minutes. Slowly come back. So how many people got some answers? What kept coming up for me was do things that you can do for the next 20 years. And in doing that, there was one project that I've been trying to get started. It was an older one, and I realized it isn't as necessary as I thought it was. And I just noticed that just today in doing this meditation. So, but it also it isn't important now. In other words, it's not that it's not going to be done. It's just that I don't have to give it the focus at the moment. There's other things that need to come into play, and then that will come in. So you have something on what we call the back burner. Okay. And if sometimes we feel better that, okay, if we've spent so much time on something, we don't want it to go to waste. But when we put it on a back burner and then bring it forward at another time, at a later date, that sometimes makes us feel a little better that, okay, we can do that. I'll keep all the notes and just put it and bring it up when we need to. There's nothing as a waste. So overall, Spirit just wanted to relay that now that we have a few questions we can ask ourselves, we can sort of quantify whether or not something is important enough for us to be worried about it. Because that's well, so many of us will do that. Will if we can't get something done, we get very critical with ourselves. But if somebody else can't get it done, we are much more understanding, aren't we, to someone else? But when we do it, we're a little more critical. So in doing that, know that this is the first step in you doing something that is going to be meaningful. That even if you're getting all these delays, if you go through this and realize it is a sustainable thing that I'm doing, I'm just going through a rough patch. Then you could say, well, it's just like raising kids, and it's just like doing anything else that is meaningful. You're going to be going through that. Then we have a different mindset going into it when we are getting those answers from within. You being that wholeful, soulful person, then you'll get your answers as you go. So the moving forward is not as easy as just taking a step. I asked for the presence, and the retasking or moving was stuck in the energy. Time will tell. Yes, had a huge realization about what's next. Yeah, that's actually a good question. Now that I see someone saying that, is now what? You ask yourself, okay, I've done all of this. Now what? Or I'm where I am right now. Now what? Because when we ask the question, based on the amount of years I've been doing my business, or the amount of years I've been doing my job, or the amount of years I've been a parent, I should be, and then whatever place you think you should be in. That's very stressful, because it shows that you're only measuring your performance or your worth based on achievement or where you think you should be. That's not always the case. Yeah, so just ask the question, now what? Now that I'm here. Okay. Okay, I hope this was a nice realization for you regarding moving forward with it, because when we ask those questions, we are much more balanced. We can be we can work more towards what our heart is telling us or what our destiny is telling us. Because sometimes it's one of the most frustrating things is to be in this spiritual journey, because so many uncertainties are there, and we have to learn to trust that even though we don't have all the answers will come eventually. Like some of the things I've added to this class, I got 10 minutes before class. I thought I had it all. Then I had these little notes. And then right now I had this download of information. Make sure you say this 10 minutes before. So in other words, all the way, however way that this was going to be set up, There's always answers right when you need it. You don't have to have everything planned, and I'm good with that. I'm good not knowing where this whole thing will look until I get there. Okay. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have yourself a great weekend.